rest of the entire commission, we'd like to welcome you here tonight to Deltona City Hall. I've spent the last 5 years, or not 5 years actually, I spent the last 5 hurricanes right in this room. This room turns into our city's emergency operations center when we have a hurricane or other disaster. The 04 hurricanes, we were here for quite some time, back to back, and most recently with Hurricane Matthew. This is where the city coordinates all of the pre-storm, the active storm, and the post-storm activities with all of the agencies that you're going to hear about tonight. Mr. Lopez gave me a little script I have to read to you, so let me go ahead and do that. Brian Carrick, News 13, Chief Meteorologist. He's going to be with us tonight to give you information. Mr. Carrick will address hurricane paths, the recent history of Florida hurricanes, and what has changed since Hurricane Matthew last year. Deputy Chief Chris Sievert, he's the city's Emergency Operations Center Chief, and he will discuss what should be expected from the emergency services during a weather emergency, and more importantly, after an emergency has passed. And I want to point out that that can sometimes be months or even years. In terms of the 04 hurricanes, we were involved in recovery for over 3 years. And it took us about 10 years to recover all of our FEMA reimbursement money. So it's a very long process that the city goes through after a storm. And finally, we have Mr. Steve Rowland from the city's building department. He will provide information on how residents should prepare to protect their property, their houses, their sheds, utility services, and more. He will also share the critical information residents need in the aftermath of the storm concerning the repair of damaged property. The city typically waives permit fees for a period of time after there's a storm, but it doesn't negate the importance of coming and getting a permit and ensuring proper installation, materials, and most importantly, protecting yourself against gypsies or fly-by-night people that will come in and try and rip you off. Mr. Rowland is the man that tries to protect you from those people who would take advantage of you. Scott McGrath, where you at, Scott? Scott's against the wall over there. He's with planning. He's available tonight to review with you locations that are prone to high water during heavy rain events. And then we have Deltona Business DM White Insurance is available to discuss questions regarding insurance. Now, if you have questions, there's going to be an opportunity towards the end of the program. If everybody got a program when they came in, please write those questions down. Staff will come around, pick those up, and then our panelists will go ahead and answer those questions. So that's kind of who's speaking to you tonight, and we're going to go ahead and first get started, I guess, with our first guest speaker, Brian Carrick from News 13. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me tonight. Well, obviously we're into hurricane season now. Kicked off June 1st. All is good so far, right? Takes us through November 30th. Last year, had a little bit of a scare with Matthew, but after working our way through Matthew and getting through it, the name Matthew was retired because of the destruction it did in its path. Of course, most of it done in Haiti. Most of the deaths were in Haiti. Unfortunately, we did lose lives here in Florida. And although most of the inland communities just suffered some wind damage, our coastal communities did take a beating, especially from Flagler County northward. And the A1A is still compromised in spots, and they're still working on ways to better the A1A. Flagler Pier hopefully will be open soon. I know they're still working on it. I watch them construct that every day, working on the reconstruction of it. But I'm going to talk about hurricanes in Central Floridians. Are we really prepared? Well, for starters, gotta do my little plug. I am Brian Carrick from News 13. I'm the chief meteorologist. We have a staff of 4, soon to add our 5th meteorologist in about 2 weeks. We're bringing a gentleman in from Fort Myers who has experience with hurricanes and knows Florida weather, so we're excited to have him on board. What you have is a team of 4 AMS, American Meteorological Society, certified broadcast meteorologists. We are the only team in Central Florida to have this distinction. No other team has has, and from what I can tell, no other team will have this certification as a whole team anytime soon. So we're very excited and very proud of the work that we've done to gain the CBM seal of approval. It just shows our continuing education and our efforts to make sure that you at home are safe. Two of us, me and Maureen, who's on the far left, Maureen McCann, we have our National Weather Association seals of approval. So we're double sealed, and that means we have even some more education in our background. And Maureen stepped it up a notch and got her certified consulting meteorologist seal of approval. I will not be going for that after watching what she had to go through to get the seal. That is a seal that would be more for off-air stuff. Jamie Martin is the back left corner. Mallory Nichols, our evening gal, is in the middle here. And again, we're adding somebody here in about 2 weeks, and we're excited to have him on board. All right, so our radar is a live radar. It is located 35 miles southeast of downtown over in West Cocoa. I've been told there's a pond next to our radar that has a three-legged alligator. I haven't been out there, but I'm really curious to get out there and see. So we have a live radar. It's sweeping the skies and bringing you guys live updates every minute or so as it scans the sky. And today it was pretty active. We had pretty good showers and thunderstorms finally coming out of the drought that we've had. And we're helping out the folks here in Central Florida. And I tell you what, I was back in 2004. How many were here in 2004? Good chunk of you. So some of you are new since then. I was actually in Central Florida back in 2004 helping WESH TV. At the time, my sister station, I worked for an affiliate of theirs up in Des Moines, Iowa. And so I came down. Amy Sweezy had her first child that summer. And I actually was here for Francis and then was flown back down to help with Jean. And at that point, coming in for Francis, I could tell that you guys were cleaning up. There were a lot of blue tarps all over Central Florida when I was flying in, the damage from Charlie that year. So 2004 until just recently, pretty good lull in the activity. 2005 was a little busy, and then we really dropped off on hurricanes. Since 2004, our population has grown. More than 3.2 million additional people now statewide since the 2004 hurricane season. And here in Deltona, you're over 90,000. That's a big number, and you're growing. So obviously, with hurricanes on our minds, we've got to make sure the population is ready. 2004, you were all saying enough already. The path of Charlie in blue, then you had Francis in the green, and Jean coming up the same, almost same path as Francis back in 2004. So since then, things got quiet. People started to get something called hurricane amnesia. And you may have heard the term hurricane amnesia. Loose definition for you. It describes a trend in hurricane-prone areas in which people tend to forget the potential severity of hurricanes in the intervals between major storms. A lot of folks going through hurricane amnesia, I think, were awoken by not only Hermine last year, which gave us the glancing blow off the West Coast and out into the Panhandle, but Matthew, obviously, really woke a lot of people up. Not everybody, but a lot of people got woken up. So one of the keys to happiness is a bad memory, right? Yes. Let's talk about some of the ways that you folks may actually have been suffering from hurricane amnesia. Maybe you regarded any awareness campaigns as scare tactics created by industries which profit from hurricane preps. I don't think anybody in this room is actually profiting from preps. We're trying to prep you, but we're not doing it for a profit. We're trying to help. They neglect to stock the appropriate safety supplies. Yes, that was the case last year with Matthew. We still had a lot of people who were not prepared for Matthew, thinking, oh, it's off our coast. We don't have to worry about it. Evacuation orders are ignored. That cost somebody their life up in Flagler County because you weren't allowed to cross the causeways during certain times when the wind was high, and a woman started having a heart attack, and a crew couldn't get out to save her because they couldn't cross that causeway. The wind was too bad. She didn't evacuate. People that were scared to death by a shark swimming in their front yard couldn't have anybody help them because nobody could get across the causeway, and they didn't evacuate. And weather warnings are ignored. And this is a big problem we're trying to fight. So, I know you're tired of politics, so we gave you something else to talk about. That was Hurricane Matthew. And sorry, folks, Florida is closed. Well, we did actually have a lot of closed places, and I'll talk about that in a second. This is one of those that really makes me laugh because you start seeing models, the weather models, and it looks like it's going everywhere. So at this point, the people in Denver should begin their preparations for a hurricane. Now, here's one of the biggest things that News 13 has worked hard on the past 2 years. If you have us on Now Spectrum, one of our biggest mantras is, don't be scared, just be prepared. And we hammer that home as much as we can, because we're not going to go on the air and hype. We're going to go on the air, give the information that we see fit in a manner that doesn't scare. I don't want to be hyping. I don't want to be scaring, because if I'm scared, you're scared at home. If you hear me start getting all worked up, you're going to start getting worked up yourselves, and that's going to totally take your mind out of the game. So our goal, and it's always been this way since I started 2 years ago, is don't be scared, just be prepared. And when my staff goes on air, it's to present the material to you in a calming fashion, not to scare. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get into the politics, but our governor didn't help us last year. He said, only a small deviation in the forecast track, this is of Matthew, to the west could bring the center of the storm to us. Said Scott, the storm will kill you. We don't have much time left. So I'm on air trying to calm people down. We've got the governor doing a live press conference, and he says that. And then he says, we're going to have a catastrophic storm, whether it's a direct impact or not. Did you guys have a catastrophic impact here in Deltona? It was toward the coast, but we didn't have that catastrophic storm damage that he was talking about. This really got to me. This really got to me, and I can't believe Shepard Smith didn't get suspended or even fired for some of the comments he made. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead, all of you. And he was saying it in the tone that he always does to hype this up, because you can't survive it. It's not possible unless you're very, very lucky, and your kids die too. Then he interviews a woman in Florida. Smith spoke with a Floridian woman who didn't want to leave her home. I'll ask her why she's staying and if she expects us at Fox News to cover her funeral. Really? Again, the hype factor is one of those things that we are trying hard to work against, because hype does no good, and people will not prepare with hype. They'll ignore. So, evacuation costs start adding up. The evacuation during Hurricane Matthew, whether you're going to evacuate, transport, lodge, $1 million to $50 million aggregate evacuation costs to individuals in coastal communities. That's a lot of money, but it needs to be done. If you don't evacuate, just locking down your home alone costs up to $4,000. But if you evacuate, your home gets leveled. Obviously, you've got the government working on your side to try and get you some money. Whereas if you stay home, you could put yourself in danger, and obviously your life is more important. So we started prepping for Matthew. We opened up the shelters. Yeah, lots of these pictures coming in on our app. Limited 2 loaves of bread, but the shelf was empty. Water, gone. I don't know how gas shortages up here were, but down in Orlando, there was a lot of chatter about gas shortages, and people started noticing the signs. It's illegal to price gouge, and gouging was found all over Central Florida, and we were having people call our newsroom left and right to say, you know, this gas station's selling gas for $6 a gallon. And so we would have to go shine a camera on them and ask them why and tell them that it's illegal to do that. Disney alone, pulling in approximately $96 million a day, was closed. SeaWorld, Universal, Legoland, all closed because of Matthew. So they took a really big hit when it came to the financials because of Hurricane Matthew. But the financial hit they would have had they kept the parks open and this shifted only 10, 15 miles west, they would have had a bigger issue with their PR and the potential that lives would be lost. By the way, I heard today that Avatar, one of their new rides, I'm not sure what the name of it is, it was a 6-hour wait just to ride the ride. Yeah. So Matthew itself, and you go out to 120 hours, and we start following the path, the dots, as to where the storm is going to go. These are models. These are all thrown in, and all these models kind of thrown into one lumped model run. And notice as we get about 48 hours, actually even 72 hours out, the dots seem to be really kind of honing in on what we were thinking would happen. It also threw that loop in. You remember the loop we talked about, Matthew going up the coast and looping back and coming right back at Florida? And it didn't do that, thank goodness. But as we got closer and closer, the track really unfolded just as was forecast. And there it is, from start to finish, at one time becoming a Category 5 storm, very briefly northwest of Aruba. Very briefly, and then it jaunted north as a 4, weakened slightly to a 3 through the first part of the Bahamas, then just off Grand Bahama Island and off our east coast, Category 4, and then Category 3 as it brushed the Cape. So miles do matter, and it was too close for comfort. So we had turned up the urgency to evacuate well in advance, but we also turned up the urgency to prepare, and the time was ticking to prepare. We wanted to make sure that you were ready. This is the path. It was only 30 miles offshore, the center of the storm, at its closest, 35 off Daytona Beach, about 34 off Palm Coast. You know, it was only 75 miles, as you see here, from Orlando, about 102 miles to the villages with a pretty serious population, I believe over 100,000 now, 153 miles from Tampa. So any shift in that path would have done some pretty serious damage right through the heart of the state, including here in Deltona. We had an extreme wind warning. First one was issued for Brevard County, coastal communities. This is the highlighted area. Basically, it was Cape Canaveral and the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. But at this point, we were getting the winds up to about 101 to 107 miles per hour, clocked at 7 different towers at Cape Canaveral, and this is from the ground to about 50 feet off the ground that they were starting to clock these winds. Daytona Beach did clock an 84 mile per hour wind with some weather instruments at Embry-Riddle. Melbourne Airport actually had a gust of 70. Orlando's highest gust was 61. It was enough to do damage, and it did. It did quite a bit of damage. The extreme wind warning, by the way, at that point, we were on continuous coverage, and that was the first time we had ever heard that, so it was like, whoa. That's not good at all, especially with our Space Coast and all the millions and millions of dollars put into the space program. But they had prepared themselves for the potential that this was going to hit, to make a direct impact. So we did lose 12 lives. Unfortunately, some tree limb lives. I think we had 1 electrocution. We had the woman who had the heart attack who couldn't be rescued because they couldn't get emergency crews out. And I'm not sure of the other ones, but we ended up with $2.75 billion in damage in Florida alone. You notice that number deaths, 26 in North Carolina, kind of jumps out. Those deaths were mainly flooding deaths. As Matthew came up, it shoved a lot of water into North Carolina. Rivers were well above record levels, and we had lots of people who were doing the dumbest thing. They were driving around barriers. And when barriers are put up, don't drive around them. You know they're there for a reason. You don't know, maybe there's a sinkhole on the other side of those barriers. When it comes to water, you don't know how deep it is, if it's flowing. You don't know if the sinkhole is opened up. So we always say, turn around, don't drown. Noah's used that phrase for years and years. Turn around, don't drown. It's the easiest thing to remember. Don't go around those pylons. Or if you even see a large area of water in a lower area of a road, I just turn around and see if you can find another route. You don't want to put yourself in danger. And you see there $249.6 million South Carolina, also because of surge and the rain in a lot of water. So we had our damage. We had our trees down. We had some lightning fires. Crews are out fighting fires in the middle of a hurricane, so you're fighting the wind and the elements themselves, and that home was obviously a complete loss. And pictures like this, the A1A, it just completely washed out. It's a historic piece of road, and when you have a hurricane that has done this kind of damage, it's temporarily taken care of, but as I mentioned off the top, they're still working to enforce and reinforce the banks along the Atlantic there in Flagler County, and they're trying to come up with ways that they can actually really secure so that something like this doesn't happen again in the future. So we did have our damage, but thank goodness we got through Matthew. And some things that I've kind of concluded here when it comes to the next round of hurricanes and the potential. And I'm going to take a look at the season in a second and just briefly talk about it. Utilizing the best technology is critical in forecasting, but if you take it old school, it seems to connect to an even wider audience. For those of you who may have tuned in at one point, or if you were on our Facebook page, we posted a video that I did. I actually have, in the Weather Center, we have a very large hurricane tracking map, big laminated map on our wall, and some markers. And I said, you know what, let's set this $1 million technology aside for a minute, and let's show people what we really do behind the scenes, and that is take a pencil or a pen and a ruler, and we physically extrapolate the storm on that map. We physically draw lines, we physically do the math to try and figure out when we think it may make landfall. And when we did the extrapolation on that hurricane map, the team actually did come within about 25 minutes of landfall 2 days prior to it doing so, and not even making landfall. And we were the only team to actually call an on-landfalling hurricane because we were extrapolating and watched this thing start to turn just enough. So the things that go on behind the scenes that you guys don't necessarily see, we don't always use that technology. And yeah, we do use our math and our geography, et cetera. So those were things that we actually did talk about. And I'll go back for just a second. Meteorologists need to be aware of the growing population that includes people from all over the world and an established population who may not remember storm destruction or have been through it. So when I'm on air, when our meteorologists at News 13 are on air, we're trying to remember that not everybody was here during 2004 hurricanes. There was a group over here that wasn't here, may not have ever been. How many have never been through a hurricane? Be honest. It doesn't matter if you haven't. I mean, if you haven't, it's good to know, because those, that's my job, is to realize that you guys haven't been through a hurricane, and it's something that's pretty serious. But we want to make sure you're up to speed on it. And we don't want you to get wrapped up in the hype of the local media and the social media. And yes, the media is responsible for a lot of hype. Again, at News 13, I work with our news director very closely. Hype is not what we want to do. So, this season, big questions, a lot of questions. Well, although NOAA is calling for an above average or above normal hurricane season, there's one major factor we can't forecast yet that will play a big role in this season: El Nino. El Nino is a warming of the Atlantic waters, or I should say the Pacific waters, the equatorial Pacific waters. And that tends to take a lot of the storm activity and send it over to the Pacific. It cools our waters in the Atlantic, and we need the warm water. It also increases our wind as you go up through the atmosphere, and it cuts those hurricanes off. We don't know for sure, but there are signs that we could have an El Nino, a weak El Nino. Until then, though, we need to be paying attention, because storms can kick up pretty quickly, and the Gulf of Mexico is one area they do right now. If an El Nino develops, we will remain quiet this season. If it doesn't develop, we could see an uptick in the number of Atlantic storms. But remember, it only takes one storm. It only takes one storm to impact you and completely upturn your life. So you may hear a forecast for a number of storms, but just remember, it only takes the one. And that's why we want you to be prepared. We don't want you to be ill-prepared should something happen. We did survive, and we will rebuild. Thank you very much for letting me come out tonight. I really appreciate it.
Brian, thank you for your information. Next up, we have Deputy Chief Chris Sievert, and he's going to be speaking on the emergency operations during a hurricane. I'd also like to acknowledge, since we started, Commissioner Bradford is here, and she's come to join us tonight and participate. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see everybody here. That's a tough act to follow, actually, especially somebody that does it professionally. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. Instead of actually having a PowerPoint, I'm actually going to go over basically some EOC stuff that we do here in the city, go over some emergency preparedness stuff that we work on. I'm going to show you some of the tools that's readily available for you right here on our city website, and actually walk you some of the links that we have, so you can see firsthand this information that's right here readily available. And then I'm going to walk you through one of the emergency preparedness kits that you can easily put together, whether you go to the local hardware store, whether you go to Walmart, anything like that, and how easy it is to put together. Most of this stuff you have right there at your house. So again, just kind of bear with me as I walk through some of this stuff. Vice Mayor Novick had introduced in the beginning that this not only serves as City Hall, but it's also our Emergency Operations Center. When this was built, this building was designed as a tilt slab building. Solid wall, concrete structure. They're probably 10-inch thick walls. It's probably, where'd you go, Chief? How deep is it down on the ground? Probably good 8-10 feet down, plus the steel cross-beamed reinforced ceilings.
It's strong enough it's made it through the 04 hurricane.
It's rated to basically for a Category 5 hurricane. So this is probably the safest building in the city as far as I would feel secure here. The problem is when a Category 5 hurricane comes through here, like he said, myself, the city manager, many of the department heads are locked into this building for up to 72, 96 hours planning, coming up with strategies in order to protect you, thinking of ways that we need to work on responding. We're doing planning. We're kind of working out our response for the entire community, also working on our recovery efforts, all while we're kind of locked into this building, planning on being here for about 72 to 96 hours. What we want to kind of drive home to you is that you need to plan on being in your homes for 72 to 96 hours. So we'll kind of come up with some of the things that you need to do to work on that. In the EOC, it's basically a big command structure. Certainly the city manager is in charge of everything in the city. Our fire chief serves as the emergency management director. I kind of like coordinate a lot of the stuff in here. If you'll see some of the holes in the floor right here, that's when a disaster is declared. The city manager says there's something that's going on. There's boxes and stuff that's all prepared back there. We kind of throw it all together. All the chairs get moved out, and that's where the operations happens in here. The Emergency Operations Center works off of what they refer to as emergency support functions. I'll just give you an example, like 4 and 9 is firefighting and hazmat. 3 is public works. Just these are numbers that don't really mean anything to you. But if we need to talk and need help from somebody, we'll call Volusia County. We use those same numbers, and we all work as a team statewide. So once you get dealing with emergency management, it's not just us. It's everybody as an emergency management community statewide. So if there's a local emergency, then we go to our county resources, and then the county resources go to the state resources, and that's how we all kind of work together to get the resources we need to deal with big disasters, whether it's a Hurricane Matthew or the 04 hurricanes or whatever else. So it's a big deal, I guess, if you will, if you're dealing with local disasters. So I want to just basically talk about some of the resources that are available for you as a community. All right. We talked about the 72 to 96 hours, and we want you to be prepared. On the website right there, it has a whole list of things you can do to get started. It talks about how you can meet with your family. You can discuss the types of disasters that could occur, explain how you can respond. You need to get to know your neighbors. What are some of the limitations of your neighbors? Are they going to be home? Are you expecting them to be home? These are the things that you want to know so that we're not out looking for those. You can come up with a contact list for everybody around as far as your family, your friends, to make sure that they should be home, or if you need to go look for them, or you kind of get what I'm talking about. Be prepared at all times to do the following. Post emergency phone numbers for everyone in your home, same thing I just talked about. Install smoke detectors. During the storm, when there was restoring power to your whole community, some people were out of power for up to 2 weeks. As they turn power back into your homes, that's probably the most hazardous time at all, because if they turn the power back on, that's when you're going to get a lot of electrical shorts in your homes, so you need working smoke detectors in your house. So again, this is all just information that is good for you to have ready and available to help you deal with some of these emergencies. Another issue right here you can have, and I'm going to go over the list here in just a few minutes, is follow the list of basic items that you can have in your house as far as food and water. Canned food, dog food that you need for your pets, those are all things that's important to have. Water for family members. You need to have a gallon of water per person per day in your house. So if you have a family of 6, So you're going to be in the house for 72 hours. So that's 18 gallons of water that you would need to have in your house on standby. So again, a lot of useful information that you need to go. Sandbags. The site for sandbags, because we're 5 days out for a hurricane, we put out social media requests and stuff like that for the citizens to come out there with all the rain you're going to get from a storm-related issue. We always have sandbags available for the residents that they can go to the Public Works site. Do you guys, anybody in here had to go to Public Works and get sandbags before? Okay. Do you guys know where the Public Works facility is? It's right there by Walmart. The new fire station on Howland Boulevard, that's also a site you can get sandbags.
I'm sorry, when do you really need sandbags?
When do you need sandbags? Every situation is different. If you have local flooding at your home, if your driveway starts to get water that might be going into your garage, that might be a good place. You can kind of stop the water from going underneath your garage door. If your front door, it just all depends. So. Another resource that's available for you is the people with special needs. If anybody in your house might have some medical conditions where you might want to register them for special needs, having that special needs list is a good resource for you to have. And that not only registers them here with the city, it also registers them with the county, it also registers them with the state. There's a lot of good information in here about whether or not they have issues of transportation needs, oxygen needs, difficulty walking. There's 17 different languages you can choose. If there's a language issue, whatever medical requirements there are, it's good to register them. That also gives us an up-to-date 2017 list, because what we'll do is we'll verify those with special needs pre-storm, and then we'll verify those people with special needs post-storm. So we'll do a follow-up with everybody on the special registry list. So again, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work as we prepare for these storms. The Firefighter's Guide to Preparing Your Family for Emergencies, and we don't necessarily need to click on that, but again, it's a resource that's available out there for you, and that's a good PowerPoint for floods, brush fires, tornadoes, hurricanes. It's just a good general overview of things to help you build a kit, make a plan, stay informed, for your whole family, for your office, for whatever, to help you be prepared and protecting yourself and your families. If you'll click on the floodplain information real quick, I just wanted to kind of let the community know that information is available. That's a link that basically takes you to the Volusia County floodplain basic information. Keep going down a little bit for me. That takes you to floodplain management information. There's all those tips from FEMA, floodplain protection issues, insurance information. Keep going down. Now from there, if you click back onto Deltona, click back onto the Deltona site, that leaks you back into flood preparedness, and then that covers all the stuff locally that you would need to know specifically with dealing with flood-related issues here in Deltona, the CRS, and everything related to that. So again, a wealth of information on the city's website, and I think it would just be a wonderful tool for you. I don't know if many of you guys have access to the website to get that, but again, if you need help with that, we're certainly here available for you. Our biggest hazard that we dealt with when we were dealing with Hurricane Matthew, does anybody want to guess what our biggest hazard we faced was? Onlookers. Immediately following the storm Friday morning, the storm was 35 miles, you said, off the coast of Daytona Beach, approximately 9 a.m. Friday morning? Yep. At 9 a.m. Friday morning, we probably faced several hundred cars out on the streets that were just nosy people just wanting to go look and see what it was. And we're all curious. It's just human nature. We want to see what's going on. But it's those people that are driving over charged power lines, that are driving over broken trees, that are driving around barricades, that are avoiding the sheriff's office curfew. Those are the people that are going to cause more incidences for us to deal with. So that was probably our biggest hazard to try to deal with. Brian brought up about the deaths in Florida. Unfortunately, we had a death here in Deltona. I don't know if you guys know that, but it was involved in electrocution. So again, it was a post-storm death related to the storm because people were doing tree work and stuff like that. It's an unfortunate situation, but again, it's a hazard that we have to deal with. It was an unfortunate accident, but again, if we'd be more careful and things like that, but it's one of those things that you need to be at least aware of. Some other emergencies that we dealt with post-Matthew, carbon monoxide poisoning. Fortunately, nobody died this time in Deltona. We've had that happen numerous times in 2004, but again, carbon monoxide poisoning became a big issue. So generators. Does everybody here have generators for emergency stuff? Just being safe for the generators around your homes. You need to make sure that if you are running a generator, that it's in a well-ventilated area. It's not inside the house whatsoever. Okay. Again, everything that I got, like I say, was at Walmart. The entire cost of the purchase, including the tubs, the kits, it's all basically brand new. Spent about $170. So again, most of this stuff you guys would have at your home, and it's easy to get. A basic first aid, you guys are going to need this. There's a good chance of getting scratches, bug bites, anything like that. So you're going to want Band-Aids, anything like that. So it's a good idea to get any kind of a first aid kit. Like I say, you probably have most of that stuff. Flashlights. It says a minimum of 2 flashlights with lots of spare batteries. A good idea to get anything like that. I also picked up a lantern, so whether you have one just for like soft light in a big room or specifically lights. Tarp. Not necessarily for pre-storm issues, but after the storm blows through, you have a window that might have got blown out, anything that might be leaking, it's a good idea to get a tarp, okay? So some tape. Now, the tape is kind of an issue that there's a misunderstanding that you want to tape your windows for hurricanes. It's a waste of time. Doesn't work, doesn't do anything, so don't tape your windows. The tape is for if you want to secure the tarp post-storm or anything like that. So again, trash bags. A lot of cleanup debris issues, so big heavy-duty trash bags for cleanup post-storm. It's always a good idea to have something like that. So these are contractor bags. So gloves. The reason why we want people to have gloves is they're going to be cleaning up glass, other sharp items. So get some kind of just good gloves that aren't going to get punctured. Probably either leather face gloves or anything like that. So gloves are a good idea to have. There's 2 pairs in there. I got a cheap, small extinguisher. Again, like I said, post-storm activities is when you're most likely to have a fire. So if there are electrical hazards, anything like that, gas leaks, electrical shorts, anything like that's probably where you're going to have that fire. So a small fire extinguisher would be a good idea to have in your hurricane kit. Spare batteries, pliers, just general tools, anything to kind of fix if you need to secure something, tie something off, anything like that. I'd mentioned the water, how much water it would take that you would need to have on hand and secured at your house. So again, that general rule is a gallon of water per person per day. And again, it's not just the drinking water. So, so you're going to need to brush your teeth. You're going to need to do a lot of that type of stuff. So having a lot of water on hand. Now, they also ask for a bucket. You can use a bucket for a number of different things. Having paper plates, glasses, things like that, you're not going to want to wash dishes, anything like that. So anything you guys can get for disposable stuff would be better. So get that. Now, if you're really adventurous, you can go get this stuff. And if you're worried about it expiring, this doesn't expire until 2047. I don't know. I'm not that adventurous. Although that did taste like most of the food we ate during the hurricane season. So.
I think it's important that if we have children at home, that we need to teach them also what we learned here. And you know that during hurricanes, there's usually tornadoes.
Yes.
So what we did in our youth organization, we taught the children I want you to go home and find the safest place in your house. Then come back and tell us if it's the correct place. And we also did the chain ladders. And parents bought them, taught their children how to use the chain ladders if they have a second-story house and how to prepared to come down. So it's very important also to share this with the children.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, they'd be the ones that will probably help us out of the house.
Yeah, and there's some great handout information up there specifically about get a plan, and they can actually draw that out. So yes, that's a fantastic idea.
Okay. All right. Please, again, I'll remind you to write questions down so we can have those for the panel when we get to question and answers. Thank you, Chief Sievert, for all that information on emergency operations. Next, I want to bring forth the city's building official, Steve Rowland, who's going to talk to you about protecting your home before and after the hurricane. Steve?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see the turnout we had, because now we get some people to ask questions that maybe we didn't think about to present to you here. We had handouts up here for the PowerPoint and a checklist. Okay, so when you go home, you have that checklist. You don't have to think about it. We've had a lot of input from several people, including our EOC, when we sit and we talk to people and ask, do you have any ideas? So we can put this together, because we don't each all know everything. Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk to you a little bit about what happens before the storm. Chief Seifert mentioned something about generators. Everybody that I know has a generator, including myself. We provide a service here. It's a very important service. It's the building department. We're here to help. Our number is on the city website. Everybody knows where we're at, 2345 Providence. We want you to come and ask questions if you have any questions. But when it comes to building, I just really ask that you come and talk to us. Generators, as the chief said, I don't know how many times I got called in 04, and I was sent out to a house and somebody had a generator in their garage that's attached to the house and it's running. And they got a cord run in to keep the refrigerator going or the freezer going so they don't lose food. They're not thinking about losing their life, their family's lives, and things like that. When somebody puts a generator in, like a built-in generator, there's parameters that they have to meet. They got to be so far away from a window, on a door, and they can't have an overhang with a soffit that's open, because when the generator runs, it sucks the carbon monoxide in, goes in the house, it drops in, and before you know it, everybody's asleep, and the worst happens. So please come and see us if you're thinking about a generator. There's many ways to hook up generators that I know of that really aren't the right way to do it. You should come and see us so that you can get it installed properly. If you're not real good with electricity, my suggestion would be to have a contractor come, pull a permit, do it right, and make sure it's safe, okay? It's something that you should check. If you have a generator, you should check at least once a month. They either run on propane, some have natural gas, others on gasoline or diesel. You just want to make sure they're running. You don't want that especially gasoline, to sit in it forever, okay? So let's start from the beginning where we need to be. You're going to make sure all your windows and everything are boarded up, and if you have storm shutters closed, you've probably seen some around here. One important thing I want to remind you, at the end of the storm, the windows that are boarded up for bedrooms, when it's safe, that's the first place you want to take them off. We want you to have what we call egress in the building field. We want you to still be able to get out of the house if something else happens later. And as Chief Seifert mentioned, some of the worst things happen. Shorts that create fires and things in the house when they power up the system. So you want to make sure that the family, if you're back in your bedrooms and you're asleep and your alarms go off, which I know everybody here has an alarm that is not only wired to 110, but it also has to have a battery backup. So those should be something that you want to check before a storm hits too. You want to be able to get warned. If you're staying at home, you want to make sure that all those safety precautions you have when you have power, the ones that you can have still are there. Okay? You want to clear your gutters. One of the things I try and tell people, it's like when you go away for a week on vacation, nobody's going to be home. What do you do with your stuff around the house? My car comes out my chase lounge, my chairs, my grill, everything fills my garage. Shut the door. I don't have to worry about it getting blown around because, you know, we can have a thunderstorm around here with 70-mile-an-hour winds on any given day. So you want to feel comfortable, like going to work. You go to work, you know what you're going to do, you feel good, you go to work and you do your job. You want to feel comfortable when you leave the house, or if you're going to stay for a hurricane, you want to make sure that you're as safe as you could possibly be. Secure all items, tie down, support little trees, turn off propane tanks on the outside, clean your bathtub and fill it with water. It's a great place for water, if nothing else, for bathing. Some people have a problem with drinking the water out of the bathtub, but you know, if you clean, it's no different than a pot and pan that you clean, and then you fill it full of water. It's a great place to have your 1 gallon per person per day to have access to, and again, you can also get clean. For the most part, though, here in Deltona, everybody is, I would say, 90% are on city water? Unless the city water goes down, you probably still have water unless you have a well, and then having a generator would help you be able to use a well. Fire extinguisher, always. You should have a fire extinguisher even when there isn't a hurricane coming. It's a lifesaver. If you don't know how to use it, you can go down to the fire station. Any one of the firefighters' fire stations show you how to use it, how to activate it, how to store it, what to look for. There's little gauges on it. It's got red and green and white, and then where the arrow is tells you what condition it's in, whether you can recharge them or not recharge them. Basic tools, hammers, screwdrivers, drills. I know I have like a Sawzall that's battery operated. I've got 3 drills that are battery operated. I got a hammer, but I'm in the business because that's what I do for a living. But the important thing to me, a $100 drill with a battery backup or with a battery, you can do a lot of things even if the power goes out early and you're not done and maybe you're trying to get some wood up on the outside of the house. It's a lot easier to put some screws in than it is to swing at a hammer. And when you got a window behind it, in my luck, I always missed the nail and I hit the window, and now I got to fix the window when I'm all done. So I want to try to save you as much money as we can, and that's why we're doing this here, to protect life first and then protect property second. We want to make sure everybody's safe. If you have any questions prior to a hurricane, the sooner you call us, the better at the building department. We can give you suggestions. I can't tell you how to do something, but I can give you suggestions on things that you should pick up. Wood, of course, 4x8 sheets of plywood are going to be at a premium if you wait till after the hurricane or 2 days before. We've all seen the rate on the shelves at the grocery stores. There are nothing on the shelves. That's about all that's left is the shelf. So you want to make sure that you get whatever you're going to get for your refrigerator and your freezer. The more you fill it, the longer that it stays cold, because all of those cold items have to cool off. Keep your refrigerator and freezer doors closed. Pack them full of food, either the frozen food in the freezer or your regular food in the refrigerator. Avoid using the phone except for emergencies. Everybody's got a cell phone now. So you end up with a problem. When a hurricane comes, everybody wants to call all the relatives and tell them they're all right, or check on the relatives down here, and the lines get blocked. So if you're going to make that phone call, try to make them short so everybody has the ability to get help if they can. The biggest issue for first responders, police officers, firefighters, as long as the wind is above 45 miles an hour, we don't go out, because we have to protect the safety of the first responders. If they get hurt, we certainly can't help you. So try and help and keep the use of the phones down. Stay indoors during the storm. You never know what's going to happen. Stay away from the windows. Stay in the center of your house. close all the interior doors, close your blinds and windows. If you don't put up wood on the outside, if you have a blowout, the blinds and windows will kind of stop that glass from blowing into the house and possibly injuring people. So you want to take all the just small little things that you can do. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but it's things you need to do prior to the storm actually hitting you. Watch for hazards. Probably the biggest hazard after the storm is everyone wants to go out and see what happened. As Chief Seifert said, not necessarily drive around and see what happened to everybody else or what happened to the city, but what's happened to your house. Probably the worst thing you can do is go out and not pay attention to wires. Live wires, electricity kills, and everything's soaking wet. The wire could be down over in that corner over there, and there would be a puddle of water, and you're way over here, and you walk out and step in it, you can get electrocuted. So be very, very, very careful and conscious about what's happening when you go outside after the storm. Check for roof damage, foundations. You're going to find out with a good-sized hurricane or a hard wind if you have any leaks in your roof. I hate to say it, but that's when you find it's the worst time for it to happen. That's another good reason for what the chief said, with a pail, you can catch some water and not have it all over your house. Using a stick or a shovel or a rake to go through piles of debris. A couple of things, you don't want to get cut. Depending how late after the storm, we have a lot of animals around here. We got snakes, we got everything. You don't want to be sticking your hand in and pulling something out, and here you got a cottonmouth who just decided it was a good place to hide during a storm. And I've heard things like this happen, so be careful. A lot of this stuff is common sense. Watch your trees. If you got large, tall trees, a weakened branch could be there, and all it takes is a little breeze to come by and have it fall on you. We don't want anybody to get hurt. Let's see, let's move on to the next one here. If structure damage is present, turn off utilities. If you have a problem with a tree through the house, the best thing to do is find, if you still have power, if you can get to the main disconnect, is just to turn the power off and stay away from that. I think most of the damage we had in 2004 was wind damage with trees through houses. So I tell people, and at my place, I only have one tree close to the house now. I had a bunch of tall palm trees, like 7 or 8 of them, and I cut them all down because I didn't want them to fall on the house. I'm from up north, so I'm used to 24 inches of snow and not 24 inches of rain. So snow can do the same thing that heavy rain and stuff. I mean, I've seen roots as big as this screen be just pulled up. As the tree falls on somebody's house, you got this big, huge root ball. Well, snow will do the same thing. It can make a tree fall over. It can make a roof cave in because it's too much weight on the roof. So we want to be careful of that. Do not use electrical appliances. If it's wet at all, stay away from electricity. It's the easiest way to get hurt after a storm. So be careful. We want to see all of you at another one of these next year, okay? If we happen to have a hurricane this year. Avoid using the toilets. Usually, if you have a radio, the EOC will make announcements through the local media to tell you whether we have issues with water, toilets, sewage, and things like that. So you'll know whether you can drink water or not drink water, if there's a downtime, or if there's a boiled water in effect. You can hear that. Channel 13, they do a wonderful job on getting that out. So just pay attention to what you get with the media. They're here to help also. They try to give everybody as much information as they can. One thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning is the last one made me think about it. Take photos before the storm, because insurance, the more documentation you have of what you have, the better off you are. And then when the storm is over and things are safe, you can go back and take your second set of pictures, so you have a before and after. The important thing to the city and all the employees here at the city is that you all be safe. That's why we make everyone available. You can reach all of us. I will have a stack of business cards before you leave tonight. You're welcome to take as many as you want to call. I ask that you call. No question is a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one nobody asks. So please, give us a call before the storm and after the storm, and ask questions. That if you're afraid of something that could be dangerous to you, please call us. That's what we're here for, okay? And, yes, ma'am.
The easement behind your house,
Yes, the easement, mm-hmm.
are you still, the city's still going out, cutting trees that are affecting the power lines around there?
The power companies are out working the power line easements at present time. They're all throughout the city, and they're examining the power poles that need to be replaced while they're doing that. So that's an ongoing process. That's not the city. That's done by both Florida Power and by Duke.
They already started?
They've been, since Hurricane Matthew, they've been at it hard and heavy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, were you done, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, just let you stretch your legs. There's a couple of cupcakes up here. If you've got some questions, write them down, and then we're going to come back for a little bit of question and answer. And the question is are there any particular streets subject to flood and that folks should avoid?
Piedmont would be a bad one. Bloomfield used to be, but I think they fixed it. The Tivoli Wheeling area used to be really bad.
Catalina between Howland and Lake Helen Osteen.
Oh, yeah, Catalina between Lake Helen Osteen and Howland.
In 04, they actually put the large concrete barriers, as they were talking earlier in the meeting, and people decided to go around them. We had a whole collection of cars that had to be towed out because they were up to their window in water. So there's a real reason when Public Works puts those up, you just don't want to go around, especially when you have water.
Wait a minute. My question is, if there was one car in there with the water up to the top, why would other people actually do something?
The next one, the next one was an SUV. First the car went in, the SUV thought they were going to be big and bad enough to be able to four-wheel drive it. Well, then we had an SUV there.
Let me just follow up on on the question that Scott had. The city will go out and do an assessment with the sheriff's office as soon as possible after the storm, and we will go ahead and have streets that are damaged or flooded, and we'll issue those out in public service announcements and get them out to News 13 and other stations. We report all of that kind of information of blocked roads and flooded roads to the county, and then the county compiles that county-wide and develops a map, and those are the maps that you see appear on the news station. So some of the best places to get your news and information is actually from the news media, because they have people at the county EOC that are constantly updating and reporting those outages. And we do have an information line set up here in the city EOC, and those numbers will be published. So once the curfew's lifted and you can go out, if you want to know of any damaged roads or streets, you can contact the city EOC, and we can provide that information to you at that time.
Isn't there, I think I remember at one time there was some place on the system or a map that you can look at, and you could find the color of your area to let you know what areas were the flood areas? Is that still available?
Yes, that's still on the city website. The FEMA flood maps are available. And there's also, if you grab my card, anybody, not just you, anybody here, it's got my email, phone number on there. If you call, I can give you those. I can also give you a link to the FEMA site that's digital, and you can see the flood maps with the aerial photos, so you can see where your house is and how close you are to the flood zone as well. And that's very helpful. It's slow, y'all be patient. It's very helpful. So anybody that wants one, grab a card on the way out, and just give me a call or email anytime this week or in the future, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, this next question is Receiver, what size and type fire extinguisher do you recommend, and where can we purchase them?
You can pretty much purchase. You can pretty much purchase a fire extinguisher again at any of your local hardware stores, Walmarts, Targets, anything like that. A 10840BC, again, those numbers are just numbers on the side of the extinguisher, but for home use, any of those multi-purpose extinguishers are going to work just fine.
Remember, it's not only important to have the extinguisher, but to know how to use it. So there are directions on the side of the extinguisher that will explain to you step by step if you've never used one before. And you can come to any local fire station and see any of your firefighters, and they'll be happy to go over it with you. You can't discharge the extinguisher, though, because once you've done that, it's no good and you got to get another one. But we do put on some classes. We have some simulators, and we're available to do those classes for church groups and Boy Scout groups and Girl Scout groups and things like that. So we have a bunch of training stuff. For those of us who have jobs in helping service fields who are not on call after the storm, is there a way to volunteer your skills? I guess that's you again.
You'd have to basically fill out a registry for volunteering. There's a program called Volunteers Active in Disaster, VOAD. Again, that's coordinated through Volusia County Emergency Management. You can pretty much register through them. If you want to get with me afterwards, I can leave a card here, or my number was up there with Lisa, and I can get you in contact with VOAD, but that's probably the best way you can do that.
And you can also volunteer through your churches. Many of the different church groups, Pastor, he has a church group, and those folks are able to come out and help after the storm with many different things. Many needs come up: transportation needs, housing needs, being able to pay a bill, or just get some simple food back into the house. So a lot of the churches, if you've got no place else to volunteer, check with your local church, and certainly the Red Cross is always taking volunteers. And also, very important after the storm, we have a tremendous need for blood. So when you see the Red Mobile go up, get out there and donate blood, because we need that. I have another question here. Tree trimming. What is the, it just says tree trimming. You want to expand on that for me? Where are you at?
Right.
Yeah. What did you want to know about tree trimming?
I just wanted to know, because sometimes I see them come and they do the back of the houses, and the way they cut it like in a V shape.
Okay, again, you're talking about the power company.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's the power company doing that. They hire private contractors to come out and do that trimming. What they're trying to do is protect their lines so that in the event that a tree does go down, it doesn't take out the power lines.
Is something like that for the residents, that they should have a thing that they shouldn't have so many big trees around, the wires or something like that?
Definitely, you should contact the power company and consult them about any trees that you're going to plant that might be near either their power lines or the power line drop to your house. But you should always contact them before you do any trimming yourself, and they can come out and render the power line safe, and then you can do the tree trimming that you need, or if it's affecting their main transmission lines, they'll take care of that trimming for you. And you had a second question here. What's the best generator, Steve?
Well, generators kind of depend on what you need it for. I know when I came down here, I came down with a small one that I could run a window air conditioner and keep my refrigerator running and the TV running. That was very important, because during the 04, we were out power for almost 2 weeks. So it was something that was useful for me. Being new here, I came down here in 03 to be able to keep track of the radio and the information that was going on, even though I worked here. I had to leave my wife, who'd never been in a hurricane, for every one of those. So be prepared. And you can go as far as high as now. I have what's called a 15 kW, which will do 15,000 watts and 50 amps. And I can run even my AC unit through my disconnect switch that's hooked up, that has an automatic turn off so that it doesn't backfeed to the power company. Some people like to kind of cheat, and what happens is if the power comes on and you're connected with your generator and it's not properly installed, then the 600 amps in that main transmission wire comes back into your house and into your generator. And when the two powers hit, it's never a good thing. So please, as I mentioned before, have somebody that knows what they're doing if you decide to get a generator, so that you don't get hurt, somebody doesn't, do something that I don't want to have to read about. Because you're all my neighbors, and I want you all to get through these things in a safe manner.
For Chief Siebert, evacuating, going to a shelter, or staying in your home, your own home, when should we leave?
That's a good question. Again, we're going to take a lot of the information from our meteorologist. When the storm basically is going to reach a certain level, we'll give you plenty of time to travel safely. Again, the condition of your house, whether or not you're going to live in a manufactured home, whether or not the wind conditions are going to allow you to safely stay in your home, we'll give you plenty of notice. It's we have certain HERCON levels that we basically would give those notices for you to make those evacuations if we're going to do that. And certainly through social media, through the news media, the residents will be given plenty of notification to get out in that time frame. And so again, every storm, every situation is a little bit different, but probably a good 24 to 36 hours, you have plenty of safe notice to get out of your homes or head to a shelter in those locations. I know somebody mentioned about shelters. There is a new 2017 list of shelters here in Deltona. We've removed 3 of the shelters. Actually, Volusia County removed 3 of the shelters that were used last year. So it's a change from that. Galaxy, the one that you and I toured last year, is no longer a shelter this year, which is shocking to us. Deltona High is no longer a shelter here in Deltona, and Pine Ridge is no longer a shelter here in Deltona. So if you want it doesn't. It's surprising. But if you want a new list of shelters, the website's been updated, and you can check out the list of shelters. So.
Also, I'll add to it, when you go to a shelter, what to expect. You're not going to a Holiday Inn. Okay? It is much better if you do choose to leave your home to go ahead and evacuate to a family member's house someplace else in a non-affected area, whether that's on the other side of the state, north, south, or whether you're actually going to leave the state. But if you do go to a shelter, be prepared to be roughing it. Okay? Bring your own sleeping stuff, bring your own medication, bring food with you. There's a lot of things that people go to a shelter and they think they're just going to be given everything and it's going to be like being at the Holiday Inn. That's not the way it works. So again, if you want more information on what to expect at a shelter, you can speak with Chief Siebert after the presentation. The last question we have tonight is going to be for Mr. Rowland, is what is the homeowner's responsibility in restoring power if my weatherhead and the power drop to the house are damaged?
That's a good question. I would say not yourself. It's pretty involved because you don't know when that power is going to come back on. So a lot of trees that come down, and you have the mast that comes up and the power head that hangs over, and you have a drip that comes in and it goes up to the pole. A lot of times a tree will go across that, and it'll take that mast and tilt it right down. Unless you're an electrician, my suggestion is that you get a licensed electrician. They'll come to the city hall and obtain a permit, and then we make sure they've got all the licenses and all the insurance to make sure you're all safe and covered by somebody who is not somebody that heard about it up in Michigan, where I'm from, and drove 19 hours down here to make a killing on the people that went through a hurricane. That's the most important thing that we do for our citizens, is to make sure that the people who do work for you
questions for you, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a closing remark real quick.
Sure. Well, as I was mentioning, do it, Pastor.
Yeah, I just got a question.
Oh, Pastor, I'm sorry.
On the carbon monoxide, right? Some people ask, why do I need a carbon monoxide? Can you touch base on that?
Yeah, carbon monoxide. The question was, why do I need a carbon monoxide detector? When you have the house all boarded up for a storm, or just on a day-to-day basis having your windows closed, people don't think about carbon monoxide. It's odorless, it's an odorless, colorless gas that displaces oxygen. And when you're running a generator, or you're running your gas grill, or you're running a charcoal grill, carbon monoxide is one of the byproducts that's produced from those appliances. And it will creep into the house where you're sleeping, especially if the house is closed up and you don't have any outside ventilation, and you'll just simply go to sleep. Some of the first warning signs that you do have carbon monoxide poisoning is you're going to start to feel some warmness on your ears, or maybe on your neck, and you're going to start to get a little bit red in the face. That's one of the very first signs of it. Then you're just going to get very tired and sleepy, and you're going to go to sleep, and eventually you're going to stop breathing, and you're going to die. So having a carbon monoxide detector, which works like a smoke detector would work, it's going to detect carbon monoxide, but it's not placed up on the ceiling, it's placed low. Carbon monoxide is a heavier gas, it's going to stay lower to the ground, so you're going to see the instructions on the box are going to tell you to plug it into an outlet someplace inside your house near a sleeping area, and it's going to be lower to the ground. And again, if you need more information on carbon monoxide detectors, any one of our fire inspectors or anybody at the fire department would be happy to meet with you and discuss that and make sure you have it installed properly in your residence. Yes, sir.
Actually, I have a question. I didn't know to give it to.
That's okay.
About the sandbags. It was mentioned that there are 2 locations.
There's 2 locations for sandbags.
There's nothing on the west side. So that means all of Deltona has to just go to 2 locations?
Yeah, currently it's the Public Works facility out by Walmart on Howell Boulevard, and then the northern end by Station 65. Currently, there's not a plan to do that. That's a logistical issue for the city to be able to use the Howell Boulevard corridor, getting it from our Public Works facility to that northern location, having 2 separate ones. But Ms. Shane's here, and we'll take a look at that, I think, with our Public Works Director.
People go to just 2 locations. We have a lot of people here. And my other question is there a limit on sandbags? How many you can get?
Yes, we will put that notice out in the information when we tell you we have sandbags ready. Typically, there is a limit to those, and it depends. We've had the county come in and assist us with bringing sandbags in, and have some other locations through the Osteen Enterprise area. It just depends on the magnitude of the storm that's anticipated, but we'll put that information out. But you do need to be prepared to fill them yourself in many cases, or I just saw a couple of our fire explorers come in. 2 guys want to stand up? We've got 2 fire explorers here. Okay, these are some of our young people that are training at high school age to become future firefighters, and they do come out pre-storm and help fill sandbags and donate their time. So that's some of the volunteering that goes on in our city.
Is there a reverse 911 system?
Yes, there is a reverse 911 system. It's run by the Sheriff's Communications Center. It's a code red system, and they can target specific areas within the city or within the county to do that reverse 911.
And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Deltona's doing a great job.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and we hope to continue to do this. And I would challenge each of you that go talk to your neighbors and your friends about this, and when you see it come up again next season, we'd love to have 2x, 3x, 4x the amount of people here. Maritza?
Can we just talk about the weather radio a little bit?
Okay. You can purchase a weather radio at almost any store, Walmart, Walgreens, Home Depot, Lowe's. They all sell weather radios, and they're a tone activated radio. They have battery backup in them, so they will function for a while after the power goes out. And they will issue alert tones to let you know about severe thunderstorm, severe lightning, wind, freezing. They're an all-purpose type system. Anytime the National Weather Service in Melbourne issues an alert for our area, It activates a tone specific to this region, and it broadcasts the emergency weather information and gives suggestions on what to do to monitor the weather, as well as if you need to seek shelter immediately if it's a tornado or some type of event like that.
And the one that is on the table is the best one to purchase. It's a silent radio, and it only activates if there is an emergency.
Yeah, the weather radios, they're mostly designed to be tone activated and go off when there is an alert. We have another quick question here in the back. Yes, ma'am.
I have a weather question.
I'm sorry?
A weather question.
A weather question. Okay.
What's the worst months that a hurricane develops?
What is the worst months that hurricanes develop?
Well, usually, so the season runs June 1st to November 30th. And usually we are pretty slow the first 2 months, June and July. Then in August, late August and September, a very sharp uptick in the storm development. And so we peak about September 10th on average. So into late August to mid-September is the highest prevalence of storms that develop. And then we sharply drop as we get into early October, kind of bubble until we end out in November. Now, of course, we can get storms outside of the hurricane season. Tropical Storm Arlene was a mid-April storm. So really kind of looking at probably anywhere from August 15th to about September 10th, 15th as being the peak of our hurricane season.
Okay, well, we've run a half hour over tonight. I want to thank everybody for their attendance and their patience and their great questions tonight. We're always here to answer your questions, so please come by and visit with us. Stop at any of your fire stations, stop by the building department, or just stop by City Hall, and we'll be happy to assist you in any way we can. Drive safely and have a good evening.